Hi, folks. Mayor Kevin Davis. Today, I'm doing a Zoom interview with some of our bylaw enforcement officers at the city. And you know, with the COVID-19, that's had a real impact on our bylaw enforcement department. Some days it's pretty tough for them as they're out there doing the educating of the public of what we can do under the emergency order. At the same time, doing all of the other enforcement activities they do with our bylaws. So, first of all, I have with us Garry Anderson. And Gary's been with the city over 15 years, I think almost 33, 34 years in experience in the municipal sector. Is that right, Garry?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, and Garry is the manager of property standards and bylaw enforcement department. So Garry, if you have two of our bylaw enforcement officers with you today, why don't you quickly introduce them?
Yes, I have two officers with me today. I'd like to introduce bylaw officer Christian Teixeira and bylaw officer Ian Harrower.
So there's Ian. Christian, give us a wave.
How you doing, Mr. Mayor?
I'm doing fine, thanks. So I'm going to ask you some questions. And first of all, I want to start out, what was a typical day like for you before COVID-19 arrived? And Christian, why don't you tell us what you would normally do before COVID-19?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off by saying the typical day of a bylaw enforcement officer will range depending on municipalities. Every day is always different for us, which is an exciting part of the job. Our traditional duties, I just want to make it very clear, have always been a complaint-based product of us inspecting. Traditionally, we do inspect and enforce the city's lot maintenance and waste bylaws. There's the zoning bylaw, fencing bylaws, noise bylaws. There's a hefty list of bylaws we do enforce. Most newingly, we have enacted a nuisance bylaw as well as a smoking bylaw within the city. So those are new to us, and we're still learning as we go. But the traditional day ranges, and we are complaint-driven, affecting properties for bylaw creations.
Yeah, and Christian, I should tell the viewers, you're breaking up a little bit because that's you're on the road. You've taken a minute out from your very busy day to do this interview. And so tell us how COVID-19 has changed your day.
It has drastically changed our day. We're more of a proactive group now, so we are inspecting our city parks and look for anybody who may be using amenities. We're looking into all the commercial business lots to ensure that only the essential businesses are still in operation. We're receiving numerous concerns from the public, which we do attend and look into those concerns. We're also working with other enforcement agencies, so depending on the concern, we would be contacting other agencies for assistance.
Right. And so when you see an infraction out there, do you kind of go, gotcha, you're going to get a fine now? Is that how you approach it?
No. We've never been like that here from my time. We always take the 3E approach, they call it. So it's education first. We would go back and check on compliance. At that time, if we hadn't gained compliance, we're going to strongly encourage the individuals to comply with what we're asking. But we do have our enforcement option, which is always our last resort.
Right. And so Garry, tell us, there's been a lot of confusion out in amongst our residents as to what exactly they can do while we have these provincial emergency orders in effect, what they can do in a golf course, what they can do in our trails and in the public parks within the city of Brantford. Can you help us clear that up a bit?
Yeah, I'm sure. I hope to clarify because as you're well aware, Mr. Mayor, we have lots of beautiful parks and trails in the city. I believe it's approximately 75 of them. So the parks are still open, the trails are open. So we encourage people to use them. However, the continuing problem is with people using park amenities. So for instance, soccer pitches, ball fields, jungle gyms, those sorts of things are off limits and are not to be used. So parks are open for people to walk through and spend some time in, but not use the amenities are there. The same as the trails. The trails are some of the most beautiful in Southern Ontario. So use them, but use them carefully and always remember the importance of physical distancing. That's what we stress when you're in the parks. And of course, to limit any gatherings of more than 5.
Right, and so these are rules that are given to us through the provincial emergency orders. These aren't rules that we've just dreamed up at the city. We're taking what the province has given to us and we're enforcing them. Is that correct?
That's correct. What the public should understand is this isn't a bylaw of the city of Brantford. It's a provincial order put down by the provincial government. Of course, people love parks, and the basic onus here is to try to keep people from the physical contact and try to limit physical contact, especially in the public. So limit the use of parks, use them for some wellness and exercise, but yet the use is limited. And again, I can only stress, because we stress it all day in our education process, is to really respect physical distancing.
Right, and although our approach is the three-step approach, there are fines that can be imposed. And what's the range for the fines?
Right. So as Christian had mentioned earlier, we do take the education approach first, but from time to time we do come across situations where enforcement is necessary, and charges can be laid for that matter. And we've laid a few in the city of Brantford. And the first ticket offense is $750, but when court fees are added on, the end result is $880. So it's a pretty expensive fine. So I think people need to understand the reason that it's a high fine is we're in a public health crisis, and to take it seriously and to really respect what we're asking people to do with respect to parks and our trails.
Yeah, good points. Good points. So I'm getting questions about fishing, because I think the fishing season opens, I think, May 1st. I think the trout season. So what do we know about fishing? Can people fish in the river in Brantford?
Right. So it's a good question. I'm well aware, Mr. Mayor, you're an avid fisherman, so it's a good question. People are allowed to fish in the province of Ontario. The Ministry of Natural Resources has made it very clear that fishing is still allowed. However, what people need to understand is that the Grand River Conservation Area lands are closed and off limits, and people are to stay off GRCA lands. So fishing is permitted, of course, provided you're still complying with all ministry guidelines requiring licensing and those sorts of things. And we would just stress that if people are accessing the river, that they certainly can't put a boat in, those sorts of things, is just not access city parkland. Use any of the amenities in parks when you're fishing. But fishing is certainly encouraged. And again, the ministry makes it clear, as well as the GRCA, is again to stress the physical distancing. So do not fish in groups. Right.
And so within the city limits, we're talking about GRCA land now. That would be Brant Park, Brant Conservation Area. That's owned by the GRCA. Are there any other spots or areas within city limits that would be considered to be GRC owned?
I'm not aware of any others. When I spoke to their reps, they certainly mentioned the Brant Conservation Area and those lands in the area, but those are the only that I'm currently aware of.
So, Ian, I wanted to ask you about, with COVID-19, what are the challenges that you find you're dealing with each day as you're, going through the community and primarily doing COVID-19, but also enforcing other bylaws as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Enforcing the new laws in regards to COVID-19, it has been difficult. It's a big change compared to property-based bylaws, that's for sure. Right now, with the COVID-19 laws, we're more proactive in regards to dealing with members of the public. People have changed and altered their lives in such a way with the new orders and restrictions placed on them that we are out there trying to educate as much as possible. And thankfully now, every call that we've gone to has been a great education session with people.
Right.
We've explained social distancing with them. We've been explaining the numbers in regards to groups that people are allowed. And again, everyone in the community has been great at receiving that information and just rolling with it. It's been a very positive talking with a lot of members of the public.
So are you generally seeing, a better level of compliance now that we're past the initial rollout of these emergency orders?
I feel like right now, with the education that we have been putting out and the city has been putting out along with the province, we have seen a great reduction in basically non-violations. Everyone has been taking what we've been giving them and explaining to them and been extremely understanding with that.
Yeah, and I think that's reflected in, our positive confirmed number of cases and people hospitalized. It's substantially lower than the provincial average. I think that has a lot to do with it. So, Gary, I'm going to go to you, please. Some confusion about what's an essential business, what's non-essential, and what an essential business should do to make sure it operates safely. Can you give us a little bit of short summary of that? I know it's very complicated, maybe reference to where people should go to get some detailed information.
Right. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a very detailed Provincial Order 8220 for people to understand what essential and non-essential is. I'll just run through a couple shortly. Is businesses that are, dealing with the global supply chain, food production, healthcare, social services, those sorts of businesses that are clearly deemed essential. What we ask is for people to inquire. They can certainly call our office. They can call the ministry hotline number for clarification on whether they're essential or not. I can tell you, Mr. Mayor, that the province has changed this order a couple of times, which leads to a bit of confusion. But what's really interesting to see from the commercial sector is the encouragement for online sales and curbside pickups for essential services to help them continue on with their business. So hopefully that will help people understand whether their business is operating as an essential service.
Yeah, I noticed retailers throughout the city have been very ingenious and innovative in protecting their staff and their customers. And generally, I'm seeing quite extensive wide compliance with that.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. The retail sector has been very helpful and, quite frankly, very smart and very intuitive on ways to conduct their business. We've heard some good news stories of one sewing business, for instance, that's doing PPE at home to help fight with COVID. So it's really nice to see that happen in the community and people take charge with the problems that we're facing.
Yeah. Okay. Next question to you, Christian. It's been fairly cold, so people have not been gathering, but we've got some warm weather coming up this weekend and next week. What advice, direction, assistance can you give people regarding this social gathering rule and what they should be doing and not doing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in relative to gatherings and with the good weather coming, we do understand that the community is really looking forward to being outside or gathering with their friends and family. But right now in the province, with the provincial order that is prohibiting organized public gatherings or social gatherings of more than 5 people, sorry about that, which also includes religious services and ceremonies. The only exception to that at this point in time is for funeral services, which they are allowing up to 10 people to attend. But I think people need to be really cognizant of the social distancing aspect of this order. We're not, most people, are healthy, but there is a large population of vulnerable people, and those are the ones who are most at risk.
Exactly. And also it does apply to private gatherings too. If you're having a gathering on your property, you're limited to 5 unless the group is part of your family. And how's that defined, family?
So they define the family as the people who are currently residing within that household. So, I mean, the enforceable is still the more than 5 people. So always a suggestion that you keep only the people within your house present at the household and you're not inviting other people over. So I think you need to be really cognizant of the whole social distancing aspect of this order.
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, Ian, what is it that you find most satisfying about working as a bylaw enforcement officer for the city of Brantford?
Well, I love dealing with people. I love being out and about in the community. And I always look at it as every call I go to, no matter what the situation is, if I can get a positive out there, if I can work with the complainant and the person that I'm dealing with for that bylaw concern, I always want to look at it and take a positive with that. If I can help both parties, great. If I can make friends with all those people, even better. But again, it's just, I love dealing with members of the public, and I love being able to get that relationship with everyone out and about there.
Right. Well, I want to thank you very much, the 3 of you, for joining the mayor here on a Zoom interview, educating the public as to what the bylaw enforcement department does. And I have to say, I want to thank you on behalf of the mayor's office, on behalf of city council and the city, for all of your service and helping us, especially with the COVID-19 and this rules that were previously had no involvement in enforcing, and now you are. I think you're doing a great job, and I think it's a major factor in what we see, the good results we're seeing locally, the flattening of the curve. You've got a major role in that, and I got to thank you. I thank you for your service, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.